Welcome to the Book Flood Podcast. I am your host, Tom Nixon. This week's guest is Matt Tavares. Matt is a New York Times best-selling author and illustrator of over 20 books, including his Dasher series. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't we start with your career trajectory? How did you get to here?
All right, just tell my whole life story. Yeah,
That'll work.
Sure. Yeah, I got into children's books. I started back in college. I was an art major at Bates College in Maine, and I wanted to figure out what I was going to do after college. And I love drawing pictures that told stories, and I love drawing people, and got the idea that I might want to try to be a children's book illustrator. So I ended up making a book as my senior thesis project, and then after graduating, a few just lucky things happened where I actually found an agent, and I found a Candlewick Press who liked this book that I made for my project, and basically told me they saw it as a really good rough draft, and signed a contract with them. That ended up being Zachary's Ball, my first published book. And I've been making books since then. So I'm about to turn 50, and my first book came out in 2000. So it's now been half my life that I've been doing this, and I still love what I do, and it's pretty cool. Each book is a whole new challenge, and yeah, it's just something I really feel lucky that I get to spend my days doing this.
Yeah, especially at such a young age to get started. Well, you know that's such a shot in the dark.
Oh yeah, it was sort of surreal how it all came together. Because especially when you're graduating from college and everyone asks you, so what are you going to do for work? And I would tell people I wanted to be a children's book author. People would say, well, what are you going to do for money? And, everyone had some story of, their uncle that tried to get a book published and it took 10 years but it did. I had kind of another part-time job for a while as I tried to get it going. But it really came together pretty quickly in the end, which was wonderful that I got to kind of jump right in. Felt like I really just started learning on the job too. I used to live in Massachusetts, about 3 miles from the Candlewick office, which in some ways was amazingly just perfect too, because where most publishers are in New York, and I might not have had as much direct communication with the people as I did at Candlewick. Like when I was working on my first couple books, I would go in there every few weeks and show them what I've been working on and get feedback. And I was just figuring out how to do this as I went. But yeah, looking back, it's kind of amazing how it did all come together when it did, when I was just starting out and really didn't have a clue what I was doing.
So did this dream of yours start in college, or was it younger than that even?
It really wasn't until college that I thought of doing books. I knew I wanted to be some kind of artist, but as I got deeper into being an art major in college, I just wasn't really drawn to the idea of making paintings to try to get into galleries, and somehow that just didn't appeal to me as much as once I started thinking about books and just how if you make a book that really catches on, it becomes a part of so many people's lives. I have a sister who's 12 years younger than me, so I think that affected me too, because as I was a teenager, I would read to her at bedtime. We kind of always had a deal, like if me and my other sisters were babysitting, I wouldn't have to do any diapers, but I would do bedtime. And just seeing, the way that, a kid can read the same story 100 times and still love it, that appealed to me. If I could make a book that becomes some kid's favorite book, what a special thing that is, where making a painting that one person buys and it hangs on their wall, it just somehow didn't appeal to me. Or even other kinds of illustration didn't really grab me either, which even at that point, it was kind of becoming a dicier field, to do advertising, and a lot of stuff was being replaced by photography or other kinds of technology. But illustrating children's books just seemed like something that could become, you have the chance to create something permanent. And that really appealed to me.
Your latest book, out in September, I believe, Dasher and the Polar Bear. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, this is the third Dasher book now. The first Dasher book, which is just called Dasher, tells the story of how Santa's reindeer became Santa's reindeer. So it's an origin story. And then the sequels so far are really just different episodes, different stories that happen now that Dasher is at the North Pole and has everything she ever wished for. I tried to think, well, what else could happen now? And Dasher and the Polar Bear tells the story where Dasher's out on an adventure in the days leading up to Christmas, and she meets George, a very friendly polar bear who just can't believe that Dasher can fly and wishes that he could also fly. So Dasher kind of sets out on this quest to try to help George learn how to fly. And it's really it's about Christmas magic and about the joy that comes from not just from experiencing Christmas magic yourself, but from sharing it with others and helping to create it for others.
So I saw that Dasher and the Polar Bear, it's going to be on Disney Plus and Disney Junior. This is
That
coming out?
is not Dasher and the Polar Bear, but
Oh,
Dasher is currently in production as a TV Christmas special, which will be out next Christmas for 2026. The Dasher TV Christmas special will be out on Disney Junior and Disney Plus, which is a very exciting thing.
is this the first time one of your books has become something like this?
Yes, yep. So totally new process for me, but it has been such a blast. Like I've gotten to be very involved in it, working with the animation studio and the writer director, and it's been such a cool thing just to have this little story I made up transforming into this whole other thing. It's been pretty amazing.
And if this turns out well, you have other books in the offing that could feed into that series as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah, we'll
No,
see. Make the first
that
one first.
that's exciting, but these things do not happen fast.
Oh yeah, it's amazing all the work that goes into making an animated movie. I mean, just I'm kind of just marveling at it's so collaborative. Like there's just so many people who are creative and talented and doing different parts of the job from writing to all the storyboard artists to concept artists and actors, and I mean it's pretty amazing.
So you are a New York Times bestselling author and illustrator. It's rather unique to do both, be the author and the illustrator. Was that always part of your plan, or did you think you'd do pictures and they more often than not they
Yeah,
pair people up?
I guess it was. I mean, from the time I got my first book published, which I did write and illustrate when I was in college, I really looked at it as I wanted to do both. But I really went into it thinking of myself more as an illustrator,
Hmm,
which I think most author illustrators, that's probably the case because, we practice and take art classes and you learn how to draw and paint and do all that stuff, but we all communicate with words. So
right.
even if maybe I didn't think of myself as a writer, I'd get ideas for stories and try to do my best to, get it down on the page. And I still think of myself more as an illustrator than as a writer, even though I've gotten more comfortable with the writing part over the years. Yeah, I think most author illustrators kind of maybe started out as illustrators, then tried their hand at coming up with their own story. And it's great to be able to do both because I feel like in a picture book, the words and the pictures are so intertwined and they feed off each other. So I actually have an easier time when I'm the author and the illustrator making a book because it's just easier to go back and forth between, once I figure out what a picture is going to be, oftentimes I realize I don't need certain words, so I can just go hack away at the words. Where if it's someone else's words, I'm a little more careful with them and don't want to be quite as as cavalier about making changes. But I feel like when I do both, I can kind of go back and forth much more easily.
Have you had some of your books where you were just the illustrator?
Yes. Yeah, I've done Dasher and the Polar Bear is my 26th book that I've illustrated, and 13 of those I wrote.
Mm,
So half so far, where the author is either I've done somewhere it's like a public domain fairy tale or an old poem like "Twas the Night Before Christmas," and I've done somewhere it's I'm collaborating with a
what is your writing process like?
my writing process usually starts out I find that most of my best ideas come to me not when I am sitting here in my studio, but when I'm walking or driving or listening to music somewhere, letting my mind wander. So usually ideas start sort of in unexpected places, and I try to keep a notebook with me when I'm traveling for work or anything, and I'll jot down ideas. And um it's always kind of a long brainstorming phase where I
Mm.
try not to force anything too much. And then oftentimes I get to a point where I decide, um, I decide to treat it almost like a high school English class assignment where I have to get a draft done today. And I just sit down and try to knock out a draft. And I found that that helps me just kind of stop hemming and hawing about it and just write something. And so I've done that with the last few books, and it's been pretty successful where once I kind of force myself just to sit down and write something, I usually come up with something. And then I can kind of work with it and figure out, if there's something there and which parts I should kind of build on and which parts I should get rid of. But yeah, usually it starts out kind of messy. Then I get to that point where I'm like, all right, I'm going to write this thing today. And I've had a couple times where that turns out to be, the draft that I send in to my agent and she passes along to my editor and we decide like I get a contract from it. And then there's plenty of editing that happens after that. But I have had a couple times where I've kind of knocked out a draft pretty quick. Which it's so weird with picture books where I've had drafts that like my book Red and Lulu, it was probably over a span of about 5 years that I kind of figured out that story and I kept putting it away and going back to it.
Hmm.
But then I've had, like the one I'm working on, the fourth Dasher book right now, and the draft for this one, I wrote it in a day and I kind of liked it and I sent it to my editor and she liked it and we did plenty of editing later, but the heart of the story was there, which happens sometimes with picture books. I mean, it's like every now and then you might just have the story and because it is it might be 1,000 words max. It's something that it's possible you can kind of just write it, and it's not like writing a 300-page novel that
Right.
even if you've got the whole story figured out, it's going to take you a long time. Picture books are short, so every now and then you can come up with one and it happens fast. But even that, it's usually, there have been a lot of days that I've been kind of just going through the story in my head like a movie, just picturing what's going to happen and how it all fits. And I kind of have to have a lot of time like that before I can just sit down and write it.
Mm. What are you working on now?
Right now I'm working on the fourth Dasher book,
Mhm.
which I don't think has been publicly announced, so I'm not going to get into too many details about it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been fun kind
But
of
you heard it
returning.
here first, folks. There
I
will be a
know, yeah,
fourth.
yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a fourth and a fifth. So there's two
Oh,
more
nice.
stories coming at least. As long as I can keep coming up with good stories, it's been fun kind of returning to the same characters and building on it. This is the first time I've done a series. All my
Mm.
other books are more just one-off individual books. So I've had a lot of fun building on this Dasher series.
And you have a book coming out in the spring, I believe.
Yes, that is a book written by Jeff Gottesfeld. I illustrated it. It's called Honor Flight. I did a book with Jeff called 21 Steps about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Right.
So this is sort of a companion book to that. It's about the Honor Flight program, which is just a great program that brings veterans from all over the United States to Washington, D.C. so they can visit the war memorials and just sort of have this day where they are honored and treated as heroes. And I had the experience of going on one with my
Nice.
uncle, who's a Vietnam vet. It was just an amazing, amazing experience for me, as I was one of the guardians. Like each veteran has someone called a guardian who kind of just makes sure they have everything they need all day. But just to see how meaningful this was for these veterans, it was mostly Vietnam vets.
Mm.
There were a few Korea veterans. They try to get, anytime they find a World War II veteran who wants to go on a trip, the honor flight people, do everything to make sure they can try to make that happen. But it's an all expenses paid trip for the veteran just to go, just have this pretty special experience. So the book is all about, sort of takes a fictional veteran through that whole experience of going on an honor flight. Yeah, and that comes out in March.
Do you do many presentations at schools, libraries, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I do a fair amount of school visits. I think I did about 25 this year,
Mm.
which is pretty typical, like 20 to 25 a year. And then I'll also do a lot like with Dasher and the Polar Bear coming out. Candlewick is sending me on a tour, so those are more bookstore events where I'm traveling around to different places and I'll read and draw and answer questions and sign books. So I've got a bunch of that stuff coming up.
Mm. Do you find that they have you more on the East Coast for these or on the West Coast, or is it a mix?
Yeah, it's definitely a mix. This year it's pretty much all East Coast. I live in Maine, so it's a lot of weekend trips that are kind of a drive for me. I'm going
Mm,
down to like DC, Virginia, Maryland. I've done some where it's more I'll do like a Midwest trip where I visit lots of different cities in the Midwest or go out to the West Coast, but
mm.
this year it is mostly East Coast.
Is there a book or a series of books from your childhood that still resonates with you?
Yeah, I guess there are lots of them. One picture book I think of often is Iris Sleeps Over by Bernard Waber. That's one that I just so vividly remember my mom reading that story to me. Like I still if I read the book now, I can hear it in her voice. It's just one of those just a great read aloud. Yeah, that's a book that I often think of. Just, when you write picture books, you try to think of how they're going to be used in out in the world once they're done. And a parent reading to a child is how it's often going to be, or a teacher or librarian as well. But yeah, that's one that I loved.
What are you reading now?
What am I reading now? Right now, I mostly have been listening to audiobooks because I don't think I have a, a physical book I'm currently reading right at the moment. But I just finished. What did I just listen to? I just finished Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Really good audiobook read by Julia Whalen, who's just a great audiobook reader. I have certain readers that I love to listen to, as I'm sitting here. Once I get into final art on a book, I pretty much try to I'm here as much as I can. And oftentimes I'm listening to stories. It kind of keeps me sitting in my chair drawing. So yeah, having good audiobooks is a big plus.
I'm a big audiobooks fan as well. When I go on a daily walk, and
Yeah.
I've always got something, or if I'm in my truck, I've always got something going.
Absolutely.
And it's good to call out that there are good readers of stories and less good readers of stories.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's just it's just a voice I can't listen to.
You wonder how this person got picked, and you just,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like, oh man, like yeah. Yeah. I guess not every voice is for everybody, but yeah.
no, for
But some
sure.
voices like I'll click on narrator just to see what other books that they've done just cuz like
Mm,
I like hearing them tell me a story.
mm. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. To our listeners and watchers out there, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And again, thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks so much
Greatly
for having me.
appreciated.
Nice talking with you, Tom. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.